Childhood National Child Abuse Hotline. Para Español, pulse 4. If this is a life-threatening emergency, hang up and call 911. For terms of service or more information about the hotline, visit childhelphotline.org. Please listen to all options before making a selection. To speak with a crisis counselor, press 1. For information on making a donation, press 2. For volunteer opportunities, press 3. Please hold for the next available counselor. Calls may be monitored for quality assurance. Hello, I'm a child health crisis counselor. May I ask what state you're calling from this evening?
It's New Mexico. Are you familiar?
Okay. Yes, I know where New Mexico is. How can I help you this evening?
Can I ask what state you guys run out of?
We're a national hotline.
Is it like every state across the nation?
I'm sorry?
Is it like every state across the nation? Right now it's 1:46 a.m. I'm sorry it's so late. Thank you for being a...
That's okay, we're a 24/7 hotline.
And the jurisdictions and the statutes of limitations, are you familiar with some of the states not being 18 years old? That some of them are 13 years?
I don't know what you mean.
The state of New Mexico has a loophole that any kid that's under 13, they do have the statute of limitations to protect their rights. But it's really kind of confusing to not be able to find any advocates in the state and having to try to call outside of the state to try to find anybody that helps any of these types of cases before lockdown. And then after lockdown, it seems that it was difficult to ask any help until things started to get a bit back to normal. And I don't know if everything's back to normal really, but some of these cases that were only recent right before lockdown, it was a bunch of kids cases that were coming up against the Catholic Church. There is a listing for the bishopaccountability.org. Have you heard of that organization? That it was like some kind of archdiocese of the Catholic Church that was making a list. So it wasn't even...
No, not familiar with that.
They weren't even accused, like they were associated with cases, but they weren't fully accused yet or something. So it was a bunch of like class action suits. We had 350 cases here in New Mexico, but I didn't know if they were all like 100% kids. So your organization, is it, I got this off of this new Meta AI National Child Abuse Hotline. Have you guys been have you been in an organization for a really long time, the National Child Abuse Hotline?
Yes, we have been around since... Sorry, let me find that information for you.
It's not too common, I guess, to like have kids call you guys, or do adults call you guys mostly?
Everybody, you know, if anybody has a question about child abuse, we're here to help, and that includes like the children themselves. Sometimes it's their friends that reach out. Sometimes it's relatives that reach out.
Yeah, I'm surprised if you're able to actually communicate with little kids, like ones that don't know how to read and write yet. Do you handle those kids a lot?
No, so we're a hotline. So like typically, if they don't know how to read or write, they're not making phone calls. So no, like I called
911 when I got told by cops to call 911 when I was needing to call for help. But apparently it's a joke to some people when kids call 911 and they don't know their address or their phone number, it kind of does make it difficult. So it's kind of why you guys might exist for a really long time, but then it's really hard to look up like how long has your organization been running around. If kids are neglected and abused by authorities when they are trying to report abuse by like priests or family members, do you guys actually step in and give better referrals to situations? Like you can take down people's numbers if they're in a horrible situation like being abused?
No. What we do, the purpose of our hotline is to provide support and resources to people dealing with child abuse issues.
Because you're a nonprofit.
So you're like an adult survivor, or, you know, if you're, like I said, like if you're a kid in it, sometimes we get calls just for people who want like numbers for CPS.
Right. But you're a nonprofit, right?
We are, yes, that's correct.
Some are called like charities too. I don't know if that's not the same thing at all. And then some are called foundations. So that also becomes a little kind of confusing. But that you guys only deal with having outreach or educating or providing any resources or services. Does that include advocacy?
So there are some states where we have, where we do like counseling and mental health for victims of child abuse.
How about if the abuse is coming from the authorities, like the public schools or the churches, or the community centers, so that when the victims are trying to report, they're being refused, that those rights under the Children's Rights Act, that they're not being upheld, or the mandate to report, it's not being upheld by people listed by the mandate to report. Are you still having difficulty with looking up the date when you guys had opened as a nonprofit?
1959 is when we founded.
Wow. That's so cool.
In 1982.
Okay, you guys are awesome. 59. That is so cool. You guys are awesome. Thank you for being part of that help. And it's nationwide. Maybe you guys also do maybe international, that you have been around for such a long time. I just found out about a program called the Sister Cities and Twin Town Projects. And that also started in the 40s, I think, right after World War II.
Okay. I'm not familiar with that.
What it is like you are like landlocked in North America, but it might go across the border to like Canada or Mexico. But then in international nonprofits, it's that 5013C, like 9 or whatever. They're different categories for different nonprofits, but they're also for the for-profit organizations. So the town or city that you might be around, it might have like a Google search. Just try Sister City of like Michigan, or Anaheim, California, or Tampa, Florida. And then they might have a sister city or twin town located in like Asia or Europe, you know, another continent. And those programs, it makes it so like, idea that I was having is like maybe a lot of people never got to go on their senior class trip, or, you know, the English trip to England, or, you know, the Disneyland trip where the whole class goes. They get a bonus discount because they're going as a school. So the idea was a bunch of these nonprofits that handle these cases for families, like little kids, those families might not have any idea about what the law is, like the Children's Rights Act, and what the statute of limitations is. So when they start finding out about like, oh, well, this suicide, before the internet was around, people really hated little kids that committed suicide. Like they blamed the suicide on the victims committing suicide, but it's like nobody would know why this person committed suicide unless they left a suicide note. And in the 80s and 90s, I think that perspective was more common. But after the 2000s, with the people coming back from the war, you might be too young to remember 9/11, so I apologize, but a lot of people were coming back with post-traumatic stress disorder, and that might have led to a lot of like the unaliving and stuff like that. But then it started coming forward, I think, because of like a movie about the priests and stuff like that. And it was just kind of like bamboozling that it was like, oh, people knew about this or something. But then another decade or something, right before lockdown, is when I found that there was this huge list. And in local news here in Albuquerque, it said that there was 350 kids there. Another topic was the Bill Cosby issue. And then right before that was the Boy Scouts of America. That all of the Boy Scouts of America had one major law suit or whatever, but it was that they were all getting dragged across the country to be done in Salt Lake City. So I really didn't understand why they had only one location handling all of the Boy Scouts of America in one place.
Weird. Maybe that's where they were like founded, maybe? I don't know.
Or yeah, good point. And then like with lockdown, with the nationwide news and stuff like that, did you guys help any of the victims of Jeffrey Epstein, since the majority of them were underage? And you're a child abuse hotline, so you'd be with anybody under the age of 18, right?
So we help people of all ages.
You are awesome. Awesome. Thank you. Can I give you my contact information, like my email?
No, we don't take anything like that at the hotline because we're completely anonymous and confidential, and we don't do any, like, the calls aren't recorded or anything like that.
That's a disservice to victims.
Well, it's because we're not a reporting line. We're here to give support and resources. We're not here to take reports.
Right, but if we're lacking all of those services here, how are people with damage that's done to them going to be able to get any help from an organization where you're not offering the services to the blind, to the deaf, to the mute, and then to the brain damaged cases? One of the victims from Jeffrey Epstein got hit by a bus, and you don't have any way to make contact with victims trying to get in contact with you. You won't take their contact information, and you won't check on them. Is that right?
Correct.
That's despicable. So that's a horrible mark against you guys. Who runs your organization? Who's the supervisor of your program? Where is it based out of?
If you're interested in learning a little bit more about it, you can go to childhealth.org.
What's your political leader of your organization? Do you have a CEO?
All that information is available on our website.
What's the primary place that you guys are based out of? Do you know your headquarters?
No, because I know that we service different states.
Yeah, but state by state, you must have some kind of a national headquarters, right? Where does the funding come from for you guys? Because if you're getting overpaid... What?
We get grants.
Right.
And we have donations.
Yeah. But how is that distributed? Is one organization that's pulling in all that money, and then it's going to nobody actually doing any outreach? You're there to answer a phone call, but plenty of people can get that job done by artificial intelligence now.
I'd love
It's
to
needed,
read you our mission statement,
right?
which is that child's health exists to meet the physical, emotional, education, and spiritual needs of abused, neglected, and at-risk children. We focus our efforts on advocacy, intervention, treatment, prevention, family resilience, and community outreach.
But you're not advocating at all.
That's not what the purpose of our hotline is.
You use the word, but you use the word incorrectly. Advocacy is basically providing that service to advocate, correct? So a lot of nonprofits will use that word, but they won't use it correctly.
Okay. I'm not here to argue with you.
No, but a complaint can be made by you contacting your supervisor and giving them my information.
If you want to make a complaint, then you can...
You can take my information and you can give that to your supervisor.
Not do that, no. We are an anonymous hotline.
Not the service if you're being paid. So what is your ID information?
What is my ID information?
Some people give an ID number or they'll give their name. Some people don't want to give their name.
We're completely anonymous and confidential. We do not provide that information, nor do we ask that information from anybody who calls it.
So bogus if you had any training, if you're volunteering or you're paid, right?
Okay.
Are you paid?
I don't have to answer that question.
Are you a volunteer? Do you have any training to help people?
I don't have to answer that question.
Do you have a supervisor? Do they have a name?
I don't have to answer that question.
You do.
Repeatedly, we are an anonymous and confidential hotline.
But you're not providing any of the services that your mandate or your mission statement states.
Okay.
Okay. You're not providing any information to make contact with anybody for a complaint or ask for any help from your organization. Right? You don't mention where your headquarters are. And since 1959, where was that location in 1959? How about that?
Go ahead and look on childhelp.org, and you can find all that information out about us.
Well, I'll just post this video